Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of MWF Talk with David Rhodes. I am your host, David Rhodes, and on this episode, I am joined by someone I've been in the ring with several times, someone I've held tag championship with, someone I've teamed with and done all kind of things with, the Ego Marshall Simmons.
Yes. How are you doing, Mr. Rhodes?
We're doing good. So, you guys have a lot of things going on right now, but before we get to that, I want to kind of get to know you a little bit. So, tell me a little bit about yourself. How long have you been wrestling? And tell me a little bit about you in and out of the ring.
Well, let's see. I've been wrestling for about 16, 17 years. Started at SWA. That was up in the mountains, but now I'm here in MWF. I love wrestling. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to be the best, be on top. And, with my time away from wrestling, I like shooting basketball. I like spending time with my family. But, my passion lies here in wrestling. That's what I'm here for.
I know that I've talked with several guys in the back, and I think that you and I are two guys that on any given day we've watched several wrestling videos on YouTube or something, or we've sat down and read articles and things like that. And I don't know that a lot of other guys in the locker room are that way. Tell me kind of what drives you when it comes to wrestling. Like, what is it that has hooked you to where you want it to be such a big part of your life?
Oh man, it's I just love doing it. I like the athletic part of it. It's something I've always wanted to do. When I was 6 years old, sitting on the couch with my grandpa, watching wrestling, watching Ric Flair and Dusty Rhodes and everybody like that, and I made the decision. I'm going to grow up, I'm going to be like those guys. I want to be in the ring. I love entertaining crowds, whether you boo me, hate me. That's your opinion. It doesn't really matter to me. I'm going to go in there, I'm going to give you a great performance. That's what I like doing.
So you mentioned some of the greats there. What would you say would be someone that when you were younger you watched and you realized then, all right, hey, watching this person, this is what makes me want to be a wrestler?
I would have to say probably Ricky Steamboat, Brian Pillman, guys like that's what I grew up on. I like watching guys that do athletic things. Chris Jericho, when he came along, that's, one of my big idols. And, that's who I was really influenced by. So that's what I try to craft my stuff around. I can't say I would be as good as one of those guys, because they're the best that can be. But I'm going to work till I can be right there with those guys. And that's my goal.
I've had this talk with several different people, and I know that it varies from person to person, from the time you were born and when you started wrestling or those kind of things. But to me, when I look at wrestling and I think of the greats, one of the first names that comes to my mind is Jushin Thunder Liger, one of the greatest of all times. He's wrestled for I don't know how many years, 30 or 40 years at this point, and decided, okay, hey, I'm going to retire. And then Randy Savage was also one of my favorites. I give credit where credit's due. Chris Jericho is still able to do the things he did now that he did back then. When you look at yourself, and we'll say here in the MWF, do you consider yourself one of these guys that people can look at later on and be like, hey, this was one of the best that walked through the door? Or do you consider yourself just another guy that's kind of just here?
I really hope that's what people look at. I want to be here to influence guys and, help them in their career. And if they need advice, I'll be here to give them that advice. I'm not putting myself over. I don't, say that I'm the greatest thing that's ever walked out there in the wrestling ring, but I'm not the worst thing that's ever walked out in that wrestling ring either.
Agreed.
So I know what I'm doing. I know, I can get it done in the ring. I've held every single title in this company the first year I was here. So, I'm here for advice, but I'm here to be above and be on top.
And we was talking on that subject. We all know probably who's one of the greatest wrestlers that ever walked through these doors, and you and I would both agree with it. We were having this conversation earlier, and that would be the natural Brandon Powers. Right. We said earlier that he could get in the ring with anybody, could have a great match with anybody, could tell a story with anybody. And he was somebody I always strive to be like. And you and I have gotten in the ring back and forth, and we've done some crazy things together, shall we say. Whether it's top rope moves or whether it's things together, or the time that Hojo chokeslammed us through a chair and both of us got a good old noggin knocker together, and I'm pretty sure I got a concussion off of that. But you and I have done some great things together. In the MWF, what would you consider would be like a highlight for you? Something that you would look back on and be like, all right, hey, this is this was a peak moment for me. This is something that I can talk about with people and they would understand kind of my passion here.
Oh man, that would be probably the matches with Brendan Powers. You know, that, like you said, he was one of the greatest probably to ever walk in here. That guy could do any and everything you wanted him to do. And when I wrestled him in the cage with Steve Odom, you know, that was probably one of my best highlights because we did almost any and everything you could possibly do. I mean, that was probably one of the greatest matches ever. And, you know, had fans standing up chanting MWF at the end of the night. And I don't think it gets any bigger than that.
So a lot of people don't know this, but around here when crazy things happen, they usually go, hey, Rhodes, come here. Let me discuss this with you. That night was something I remember fondly because they went, hey, we have this ladder. What's something we can do with this ladder? And it got my weird, twisted mind kind of going. But out of that match, I don't remember that ladder. I remember that suplex over the cage into the ring that you guys gave to Brandon. And, like, sitting backstage, I was like, oh, my God, that hurt so bad to watch it. Yeah. And I can only imagine how it felt in that moment while you did it. Tell me something, like, what was highlights of that match when you sit back and you think about it?
I remember doing the suplex off the top of the cage with Brandon, and what a lot of people doesn't know, and you know, unless you were here after the show, that we actually broke the ring during that match. I mean, the board was actually broken in the middle of the ring, and that was probably why.
Yeah.
You know, we did some stuff in there. I'll tell you, the next day after that match, I was probably more sore than I've ever been in wrestling because, I mean, it was just took a toll on your body, you know.
How many injuries have you got, and what would be one of the worst injuries that you've got?
Oh man, I can tell you, I've broke my shoulder and my collarbone in wrestling. I've cracked my hip, which that was probably the worst thing I ever did was crack my hip because, as you know, when you can't walk around for about 3 months, that's pretty bad.
Oh yeah.
You know, and I couldn't train, I couldn't wrestle, I couldn't work, I couldn't do anything. But, you know, that's part of this game. That's, you know, when you step in that ring, that's what you take on. You know that there's a risk you could get hurt. There's a risk you could get injured. But, you know, that's why we work on this craft every time we can so that we can get better at it and we don't cause injury to ourselves. And that's what I say. If wrestling was fake, then, you know, we wouldn't be walking around with injuries. We wouldn't be walking around with bad knees. You wouldn't see guys that, you know, can't wrestle anymore. I mean, it's very athletic, very more athletic than what people give it credit for.
You mentioned breaking your hip, being sore, couldn't walk around and stuff. So I have to bring this up. You and I have discussed this before.
Yes.
The most sore I have ever been around any of the wrestlers was when we decided to get together and play flag football.
This is true.
For a couple days after that, I couldn't move.
Yes.
And it quickly turned from flag to any way that you can get a hold of somebody. And I went home and my wife was like, oh, poor baby, get up and do stuff. I couldn't move. Yeah. And I think you even told me a story about when you got to the house. Tell me that story again.
Oh, yeah. I'll get to the house and I can't get out of the car. I literally cannot get my leg out of the car. So I tell my wife, I'm like, I can't get out of the car. And she's like, yeah, right. I'm going in. I'm like, no, seriously, I can't get out of the car. So she goes in the house and I'm sitting in the car and I'm just looking around because I can't move. So 10 minutes later, she comes out and she's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I can't get out of the car. I mean, so she literally had to help me out of the car and get me in the house because she thought I was joking.
God, oh man, that day, oh my Lord, it was. Several guys got together. We played. I think everybody at one point in time, it was kind of like myself and Hansen were slapping against each other like you threw a piece of bacon on the floor, and like you could hear the slap every time, and it become pretty rough.
He's like moving a mountain.
Oh God, Lord. So before you go out the curtain, when you're getting ready or anything to that nature, do you have a superstition or like a ritual or something that you go through before every match or something when you're getting ready?
It's pretty much like a mind state. Like I have a mind state, you know, normally of, you know, just me, but when I get ready to go through the curtain, it's like the mind state changes and you go into your character. And of course you've been in the ring, you know this. You change into that character. You are that character now.
I'm kind of am that character all the time, unfortunately.
And it's just a mindset you have to have to go in there and do what we do. You can't be just, Joe off the street over here and think you could walk in a ring in front of people and do what we do. It's just not going to happen. So, you know, it's really about me getting in my mindset, knowing what I got to do, knowing I got to get the job done and do the best that I can to bring people back here for the next show.
So a couple rapid fire questions. Let's see how quick that you can think on your feet. How many times have you been a champion in the MWF?
5.
5. Is it 2 North Americans, 2 tag, and 1 heavyweight?
Yep.
Is that correct? All right, look at me. I know my MWF history here. Who would you say was probably one of your favorite people to be in the ring with?
Brandon Powers.
Who would you say was one of your favorite people to be in a tag match with?
That would be you, Rhodes.
Hey! Got a shout out on the podcast here. When you sit back and you look, and we actually talked about this earlier, when you sit back and you look at the roster that we have right now, how do you think the future looks for the MWF?
I think the future looks good. We got a couple of up-and-comers, and they've been training their butts off. Of course, you know that, being the lead trainer here.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know I drill these kids a lot.
That's right. He does. He runs these kids to death, and, they're going to appreciate him later. They might hate him right now, but, we won't let him know that.
Like somebody's getting drilled out there right now.
I hear that. So, they work very hard, man, and I want to push these kids, and I want to make these kids as good as we are. I want everybody to be on that same level, or above, so that, everybody puts on a good show, because we know, fans don't come out just to watch one person or one match or one thing. They come out to see the entire show in its entirety, and the whole entire show has to be good, because as one bad apple can spoil the bunch.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and we've had several of those bad apples through the years, but myself and the Outlaw have talked several times on this, and I feel like right now we might be at the strongest roster we've ever had.
That's true.
A lot of guys are in good mindsets when they come in here. They want to learn. They want to do more. Matter of fact, I was actually in the ring today with Mad Matt Matthews, or M3 as I like to refer to him, and he was like, hey, I want to figure out how to do this move. And we went through this over and over and over until he was comfortable with it. Before, I don't think we had that. But these guys now, they're hungry for something different.
Yeah.
And I know that you have been with the Belt Collectors for some time now, and I know that you and the Majestic Casey Kilgore has had some killer matches with Devin Reed and Chaos Keith. Can you run me through some of the things that you would say, like, those are your favorite moments in these matches? Because there's been a lot of them over the past couple months.
Oh, yeah. Me and Casey, I love tagging with that guy. Me and him have went against Chaos Keith and Devin Reed. I give my respects to them. Them guys are really good. They're young. I got a little age on me, but I get in there and I show that I can still run with them. And, I'm not going to lay down for anybody. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to get the gold. So, if that's what it takes, that's what it takes. But, yeah, I give credit to those guys. Those guys are really good. But, we're good at outsmarting you, too. So, it takes all kinds. It's just not the athleticism. It's the smartness. Let's
go back to Brawl Games of last year, and let's discuss this tag cage match that you guys had. Sitting at ringside, I about had a coronary as we were going through everything. And take me through the moment when you realized you were standing on the top and you were about to end up in a Spanish fly.
Yeah, so I climbed up and I was getting ready to hit a move, and next thing I know, I look over and here comes Chaos Keith climbing up with me, and I'm like, what is this guy doing? The next thing I know, he grabs me, off we go, he does a backflip, I do a front flip, we land in the middle of the ring, and that was one of the hardest impacts I've probably ever took. But yeah, that cage match as a whole, it was fun, but we lost that one. I give credit to where credit's due, but I still think, even though you caught it, my shoulder was up. But hey, we'll discuss that on a later date.
Yeah, it's been months down the road and nobody wants to discuss that one. I feel like I called that one out pretty clear, but anyways, moving on past that one. So I know that things are changing for you. Things are going to end up being a little bit different. There's a new MWF heavyweight champion in Ray Hansen. How do you feel about Ray Hansen being the champion?
Well, I like Ray Hansen as a person, as a character. It's okay, but he's going to carry the belt pretty good. But I think when I get my chance, it's going to come around my waist. That's just personally for me, because I've wrestled Ray many times, and he's big, strong, heavy-set guy. But I think I have what it takes to take the belt off of him. So when we go one-on-one, we're just going to see.
So a little bit of rapid fire about you.
Okay.
What's your favorite type of music?
My favorite type of music, I like rock, rap. That's about what I listen to.
So if you had to name like a band or an artist right now, who would you say would be
I like a lot of Shinedown. I dig that. I like Chevelle. I like DMX. I grew up on DMX. I have to be honest. I like that a lot. It's probably one of the first rappers I ever heard, and that's what I stuck to. I like Eminem. I've listened to a lot of his stuff. So,
when you're sitting backstage at the MWF events, I know that the locker room can be big at times, and at times it feels very confined and very small. Do you see yourself backstage? Do you want to talk to people while the show's going on? Do you want to be by yourself? Do you want to sit and watch the monitors? Like, what do you do when you're backstage?
I pretty much stay to myself. I watch the monitors and stuff, and I watch everybody else and see how they react, what they're doing. But, I like to keep my eye on the monitors, keep my eye on the action. I like to keep up with what people's doing in the ring because, if I have to be in the ring with them, I want to know what they're doing. I want to know what kind of moves they're doing, what they bring to the table because best believe when I'm in there, I'm going to bring it to the table.
Oh, right.
You better be ready.
So you consider yourself to be like a true student of the game.
That's right. I mean, I've been doing this a long time. 16, 17 years. That's a long time of my life to be doing this, and I don't want to see people disrespected or, act like this is some game because, this is what I've done half of my life.
No, yeah, I agree. Like I come in, it's been doing this for about 8 years now, and we've talked about this before, and I've talked about this with other people. It's like when we started here, and it would be like those 8 years and beyond. That was a different mindset. That was a different era, should we say, of independent wrestling. Mm-hmm. And then now the guys don't understand kind of the things that we went through to get to where we were at. And I like to pound it in these guys' heads. If you get in the ring, wipe your feet off. Show respect to someone that's coming before and after you.
Pay your dues.
And I've went through and I've read a lot of books. I've watched a lot of videos, and we've done all this stuff. And I know you do the same things.
Oh, yeah.
But it seems like generationally things change in a not so good way sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
When you look at how the state of wrestling is as a whole right now, I feel like it's at its peak as it hasn't been in many, many years.
Oh, yeah.
Where do you see the MWF as the whole right now? Do you see us staying with the crowd size that we're at? Do you see us growing? I know that the Outlaw wants to get us to a different place in a different time, but we're here now. Where do you see things going?
I see things going in an upward direction because, we got new guys coming in training. They're doing really well. Every match now seems to be solid. We're, great crowds every show. We used to have, super show crowds, and now we having regular crowds that look like super show crowds. So, that's increasing right there. We're working hard to put people in seats, do what we can, sponsor, anything we can do to get people in here, but when it comes down to a whole, it's the action that brings the people in here. It's the matches, it's the storylines, it's everything about the show that goes into it that brings people to this building.
Do you prefer to wrestle as a singles wrestler, a tag, and with a group or a faction, or like what do you like when it comes to it being in the ring?
I'm pretty much a good singles wrestler. I like doing that. I can control what I do. I don't have to worry about what somebody else is doing or being in a faction with somebody else and all these other people, which, it's good sometimes because you can get an advantage if you got 3 or 4 people behind you. It's easy to get somewhere, with a belt or whatever you want to do because, you got 3 or 4 guys behind you, but at the same time, those 3 or 4 guys can be doing stuff that you don't know about, turn on you, whatever. When I'm by myself as a singles competitor, I know what I'm doing, I know where I'm trying to go, and I know where the goal is that I'm trying to reach.
I know a lot of people watch wrestling and they go, oh, they hear this a lot. And when it comes to tag wrestling, there's a chemistry between wrestlers.
Yes.
And a lot of people think, oh, they just say that because, they throw 2 random guys together and whatever. I myself have been in several tag teams that things did not click. That chemistry was not there.
Yeah.
One of the top tag teams I'd ever been in here in the MWF was with the Natural Brand of Powers. We were the Weapons of Mass Destruction. We gelled, we clicked, we had that good chemistry immediately.
Yeah.
Like I said, he was somebody I wanted to be like. And you said earlier that you enjoyed tagging with Casey Kilgore. Do you feel like you guys have that chemistry as a unit, or do you think that you're 2 singles wrestlers that have come together with the same mindset as each other? And
I think we started out as singles wrestlers, but I think tagging with him has brought us together, and we do click as a tag team because a lot of our styles are similar. We have a lot of the same thoughts about what we're doing in our matches and the moves, and everything just flows together when we're in there. It's like we know what each other's thinking. So when you got somebody like that, it's almost like you're a singles wrestler with a partner you know, but you're still one person. It's
Right,
kind of
right.
weird to explain, but I mean, you know what that's like.
You're kind of
Yeah.
you think the same way, so
Yeah.
therefore you're easier to
Yeah.
get from point A to point B
That's right, yeah.
versus trying to take somebody from
Yeah.
point A to point B to
And
point
if-
C.
And if you're in there with somebody that's not clicking that well, you know, it's easy to get a victory that way because I mean, y'all are on the same page, and maybe they're not.
Yeah, and I know you guys are working a lot together as tag team. You guys have started working as singles competitors. Like, it's hard to maintain that
Yeah.
that back and forth.
And a little fact, I've never had to wrestle Casey Kilgore either. So
I've never actually been in the ring with Casey myself. There's several guys that are in the locker room now that I think, man, I wish they would have been around when I was an active wrestler, so that way I could actually spend time with them. Unfortunately, I feel like Brad Adams was probably my last match because where I see myself versus where the rest of the guys are, I'm more beneficial backstage, more beneficial behind the microphone at training than I am in the ring. And I feel like for me, that's kind of over with. When you see yourself, do you ever go, all right, I think this might be it for me? Or do you still say, hey, I've got X amount of years left in me? And
you know, there's times that I do shows and I wake up in the morning, I'm like, why am I still doing this? You know, I've done this for so long. You know, my body hurts, my knees hurt, but you know, at the end of the day, it's what I love, and it's hard to quit what you love. You know what I mean? It's something that you love to do. Y'all might be hurting on a Sunday and be like, I'm done with this. Come a week later or 2 weeks later, hey, I feel great. I feel like I want to do, you know, a wrestling match. So,
yeah, I mean, when I
know.
come in earlier, you actually told me,
Yeah.
hey, I'm just doing dumb stuff for no reason.
Yeah, I was,
So
you know, that's what I do. You know, I have an idea. Hey, let me try this. You know, but luckily, you know, I'm 36 years old right now, so I'm gonna try to make it to 40. If I make it to 40, you know, I'll probably call it quits, and you know, I'll be happy with what I've done. You know, because
who knows? At that time, you might end up like me, and you can see where you're more beneficial backstage.
that's true.
Than,
know.
and a lot of people don't know. We don't have a lot of those people backstage.
That's right.
We have a lot of guys that are just like, hey, what do you think about this?
Yeah.
And somebody goes yay or nay to it.
Yeah.
But we don't have those guys backstage when they go, hey, can you help me with this? I'm trying to do this move, and it doesn't quite work this way. Can you give me – we don't have that backstage.
Or that helpful criticism. You know, everybody needs that. You know, to say, hey, that didn't look good.
There's always a critic, but there's not a lot of helpful criticism.
Yeah, that's right.
And if you want a critic, you can just sit out here and listen to them all night, and they'll tell you what they feel about something. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to wrap up this episode with the Ego Marshall Simmons. I wish you the best of luck, man. Like I said, I've enjoyed being in the ring with you. I enjoy hanging out with you. Every show, we usually go eat lunch together.
Oh, yeah.
I consider you a good friend of mine. So, you know, best of luck to you and best health, should we say.
Thank you. Thank you
Ladies
for
and
having me
gentlemen,
on.
this is another episode of MWF Talk with the living legend, David Rhodes. Have a good one.